Attention!
Welcome to the Film Mages Podcast, where the popcorn is our ammunition, the couch is our foxhole, and the cinema is a place of worship.
Now let me see your war face. Ah!
Crikey, mate, it's another episode of the Film Mages.
Why, yes it is, mate. Oh, actually, that's not fucking Australian, is it?
Yeah, no, how you doing with that?
Is this,
he's losing it.
Is this Australian?
He's losing it.
No, so I currently
it might be Irish.
I currently have an Australian co-worker right now. They are from Sydney, and I found out that apparently they don't say crikey.
Oh, that would be news to the movie we watched today.
I know, right?
Yeah, that would be news to the world because I told her you're wrong. You say it.
That would be news to a movie produced by and starring a bunch of Australians.
Yeah, I have my doubts about that. It is news to the Film Majors podcast, which is what we are.
Hello, I'm Zack.
I am Mick.
I'm Alexis.
There she blows.
That's Alexis. That is Alexis. Let's see. I've been listening back to some older episodes. Alexis Maricino, Alexis Elvizia, Boy Sweat Alexis.
Boy Sweat Alexis.
Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
Master of Theory.
Tiny Tim, Tiny Alexis.
Right.
Master of Theory. There's a lot. There's been a lot.
Haven't I been a ghoul? Are you the ghoul? Am I the troll? Who's the ghoul?
No,
Am I
you're the ghoul.
You're
You're the
the
skulking.
troll.
You're the skulking ghoul.
Because when I was hanging around your guys' apartment all the time.
Yeah,
No, I remember.
I'd see you skulking around, and I would say, "What's going on?"
There it is.
It was a smooth
Lovely.
one. That was a smooth.
Lovely. So, listeners, what is going on? Okay, let me start by saying that we are not all in the same place. You can probably tell, listeners. We are recording from different locales. I'm currently on a trip, and I am calling in from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh.
And
Walter.
yeah, it's been fun. I've been doing a trip where I'll just say that we average about 400 to 500 miles a day in 16-hour days. So I'm a little tired, but usually that results in some pretty wacky podcasts. So I'm hoping that will happen tonight. So I've got my little cup of punch here. And a little clinky clinky. You can hear that, listeners? That's the sound of joy in liquid form.
If you've got a glass, raise it, because the other thing that is going on is that we have done it. This is the Film Majors episode 100.
Congratulations to us.
100 fucking times. We've hit triple digits.
Which actually, though, right before we started recording this, Zack made a good point. By this is technically episode 102.
Maybe 103, honestly.
Because we have had numerous technical difficulties that have required episodes to just not be aired. Not because of anything controversial that was said, because, trust me, all of those episodes have been aired. But
yeah.
Simply just to the fact that it was not listenable or there was an audio problem. But in terms of what we have released, we have done this. You're right, Zach. We have done this 100 times. In fact, I have been telling people recently that, oh my God, after one of these nights, I have to record another episode remotely, and they go, "Oh my God, you have a podcast? Wow, what's it about?" And I go, "Shut the fuck up. It's sorry. It's
good.
about movies."
I'm glad you're doing good promotion for us.
I'm doing good promotion. Look, she's got a little sippy cup. Guys, we all got sippy cups.
We're all cheersing the podcast.
Look at that. We're all drinking.
Just acquired a new listener as well. They love our dynamic.
Yeah, I've noticed that we've gotten a few more followers recently, and that they've been drawn in from Alexis through the Salute Your Shorts Film Festival.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Well, you know, to be honest, it's not like the first. I think I kept saying the first like day or like the first day, like, oh yeah, well sometimes I'm on my friend's podcast, and then by the last day they said something, and then I was like, well, actually, it's our podcast. I am also a co-host.
Yeah, Alexis, where is that lie going? Where is that? If they look it up, they're going to see your face in the artwork.
Well, I didn't tell them necessarily about it until after they added me on Instagram. You know, people can see my tagged photos. I think that's what it is.
That's like your tagged photos are going to be like all this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hundreds.
But yeah, no. Yeah, I had like a very stimulating argument about Fitzcarraldo with somebody, and that was the first. That was the first episode that they listened to, and then to Mad Max.
You've
Fury
had some
Road,
practice,
which they concluded is a banger. So
okay, we've got to circle back to this. I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get back to it.
Our big topic will be all about this. Well, has anybody seen any films?
No. So either of you take it away.
Alexis, you seen any films?
I've seen Cuckoo.
Nice. What you think?
You saw Cuckoo.
I did. I think Zack, you remember what I said about this, right?
Remind me.
Dan Stevens.
Oh, I do remember. Mick, hold on. What do you think that Alexis's takeaway from Cuckoo might be?
I think that she's going to say something along the lines of fascism has never been so sexy.
You're very close.
It has something to do with finding a German scientist being weirdly attractive and alluring, and I kind of want him to... Yeah,
now you are directly on the money.
It's like
clockwork.
You don't even need to try. Yeah, it's...
Listen, when you record 100 of these things, you're going to be able to predict more or less what the other people are going to say to some degree.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
funny.
I think I'm the only one who continues to be surprised by my taste. You guys, I feel like you guys are just desensitized to it, but I myself am sometimes like, oh, I didn't know that would taste good. You know?
Yeah. It's like we talk in the...
That was a weird flavor combination. I didn't think that would be good.
In the intro, we talk about how we are the film majors, and the popcorn is our ammunition, the couch is our foxhole. And if I was in a foxhole in combat, I would have been in this foxhole probably by this would be my third, I would have been in there for a very long time, and all of the shells that are exploding around me are Alexis's very weird taste and takes. And at this point, I'm just so used to it.
You're
I'm just
at this
fuck,
point.
man.
It's
It's
all
just
numb.
whatever. It's numb.
I mean,
I've been in the trenches for so long, you can't surprise me.
I'm not going to say that you feeling like Dan Stevens is sexy is wrong. I feel like that's an attractive man.
That's a good
an
take.
attractive
I get
man.
it.
Yeah, and then I saw that
so
he
Alexis,
was the
what'd you think
Beast
about
from
the
Beauty and
movie?
the Beast, the live action, and I was like, oh, okay, we like a well-rounded king. What up? I'm like,
Alexis, what did you think of
can
the
do
movie?
weird German, can do Beast. I'm like, those are all.
What did
Alexis,
you think
for the love of Christ.
the movie?
Oh yeah,
What did you think of the movie, please?
Mick, you were incredibly right. Hunter Schafer is just like an absolute star in the making. Or maybe it was Zack. I don't remember who said it, but yeah.
I think it was both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely it was odd for sure. I do get I have now described it to somebody else who was asking about it this last weekend, that it's kind of like a cure for wellness in a way. So if you've seen A Cure for Wellness, you may be interested in this because it's kind of like a biological thriller. Almost like an evolutionary thriller.
It is the Coke Zero to A Cure for Wellness's cocaine.
Real.
You know, it's still good. It's still got that good flavor, but it's a little diluted.
I mean,
That's
to be fair, like
weird.
it was very, it was relatively original for me. Like I wasn't really sure where it was going, you know, but I was interested, and it wasn't like too convoluted, you know how some stuff gets lost in its own sauce and you're just like, I don't know about that. This one didn't get lost in its own sauce. I think it stayed pretty consistent, like explaining things so that I didn't get like lost or whatever.
Nice.
So you liked it?
I quite liked it. Yeah, I'd give it like a 3.5, 4 maybe. I don't know. Like,
wow, that's a film major's consensus.
Consensus pick. Go see Cuckoo. I also saw a 2024 horror movie, but I did not see it in theaters. I watched The First Omen on Hulu, and this was a movie that Mick was fairly hard on earlier this year.
Yeah, I gave it 2.5, and it made me kind of frustrated.
I gave it a 3.5. I thought it was quite good.
Which movie?
Yeah.
I think it looks...
First Omen.
It looks insanely good.
No, it's gorgeous.
That might be the best looking movie of the year, in my opinion. The 6th movie in a horror franchise that has been running since like 1971 has no business looking that good. I thought that the lead actress was solid. I liked its position on the Catholic Church and how it might respond to the birth of the Antichrist. I thought it had a few like genuinely like gnarly moments and some like very fucked up imagery that's like to the level of like, oh, I'm surprised you actually got to do that in a studio horror movie. I'm surprised that the MPAA didn't crack down on you for one shot in particular. I think
in the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
No, if you recall, that was one bit where I was like, I'm impressed. And that's one thing I'm impressed that they went that far with it.
Yes. I think that, I don't know, I'm kind of two minds on the, like, birthing sequence that is very much directly lifted from Possession. Because on the one hand, yes, it is like just doing the shots from Possession. On the other hand, one of our favorite filmmakers and frequent guests on the podcast, Quentin Tarantino, does that shit all the time. Like, does just directly lift shots and imagery and fully steal it.
Right.
Into his movies, and the only difference is that we have not seen those movies.
Right.
So I don't know that it's totally fair just because I've seen Possession to be like, oh, you're stealing that. That said, it doesn't have the same impact that it does in Possession.
I mean, okay, so like I was talking to somebody over the weekend about Jordan Peele's Nope and how he uses the Akira bike slide, I mean, when something is when something's an homage and it's done correctly, like in context of like how it was originally like meant, like I think it's pretty slay, because then, I mean, to me, I think that the coolest thing is to like do the little throwbacks so that maybe people are interested in actually seeing those things that they come from, that's something that it's like, oh, they wouldn't know about it unless it came up like this, like there's so many people that have not seen Possession, I'm sure,
Yes. Yeah. I think
My thing is like, Zach, I think you make a good point with the Tarantino thing. You're absolutely right. But yeah, when I first saw this back in months ago now, I was pretty upset by that because like the Akira bike slide in Nope is 100% a wink. You can tell that it's an homage, but not like a lot of people would necessarily get it. But there's what they do in the first Omen is not a wink. It is an unblinking stare. It is just so obviously lifted and not done as well. So I would say for the first time and only time I watched it, it really just took me out of the experience. So if I were to rewatch it, and I know a lot of people have said, and now Zach, you're saying it, that it's actually quite a good film. I might be softer on it. I don't know, but I also didn't care for the main character nor her performance.
I thought she was very solid. I think circling back to the homage thing, I think a good point of comparison for me, and I think maybe my like, am I going to be annoyed at this or not, really comes down to, are you the filmmaker when you're talking about your movie being like, yeah, I was doing this thing to homage Possession, because something in the past few years that really got under my skin was Emerald Fennell saying, oh no, I like the talented Mr. Ripley was not on my mind when making Saltburn, when I like, it is undeniable that movie is hugely influenced by the talented Mr. Ripley, and to deny that, then I feel like Borders gets into the territory of stealing. Like there is no way that the person who made Saltburn had not seen the talented Mr. Ripley. Like, I don't believe it remotely.
But like, what is okay? Let's just say, for instance, that you're not correct. That it's possible.
There's just no way.
Well, so many stories are just remixes of other stories. So what if the talented Mr. Ripley is a story that's taken from, like, say, for instance, one of the texts that she was referencing in, like, Gothic literature? It's possible.
I don't know. I am not buying remotely that she has not seen that movie. It's just, it's too on the nose. But that's an example to say that I think my ultimate takeaway is, if you're a filmmaker who's going to lift something from another movie pretty directly, if you're open about it, I personally don't really see a problem. But yeah, also... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, it's like, it is interesting. I always find these conversations fascinating of, why is it like, actually our last episode is a good example, Muru, where, there are certain movies, that depict historical events that are completely fast and loose with the truth, and we don't have any problem with it. And then there are a lot of people that were critiquing Muru because they fabricated some things to make for a stronger narrative. Where is that line? Why do some people critique it for this and not for others? This is a really good example of that, of homage. And yeah, that is interesting. Again, I think personally myself, aside from the other problems I have with it, like the main character, and then also I thought the ending was not very good.
Ending's a little stupid.
The homage part, again, it was ripping off a movie that I adore, that I actually feel like a very personal connection to, just by virtue of how we discovered it, Zach. And then seeing it in theaters, and then to watch this movie that, as I was watching the first Omen, I saw it at the Vista, I saw it on film, I was like, this movie's gorgeous. I like the mood. I liked how it has guts to have some really powerful imagery that you don't get a lot of in Western cinema. But then I just feel like the floor kind of fell out from underneath them, and it kind of lost all the potential that it had. So I think the main reason I gave it such a low rating was because I was frustrated that it wasn't as good as I was hoping it to be. And then with the homage, I think it was just ripping off a movie that I personally like so much. So I think that's a personal problem for me. You could definitely argue, I think Tarantino argument is completely valid, that for any other viewer, it's fine. And Alexis, maybe you're right that it'll make people go out and watch Possession, which everyone should do.
It owns. Alexis, have you seen any other films?
It owns, it rules.
Well, I was at a short film festival this last weekend, so I did see a number of short films. I only got to see one block, but I'm going to make sure to reach out to the programmers and ask them for like a link to see all the rest of them. But yeah, the block that I did see was really good. It started off with this short called, I think it's Border Crossing, I want to say. But it was almost like, so it was like this woman who has gotten an offer to do like a Super Bowl commercial, but then she finds out that they're shooting it in Poland, and she starts to panic because she's in the process of getting her like green card visa, but she doesn't have it yet. And so she's playing this kind of like almost Candy Crush game. So it goes back and forth between like live action and animated, because every time that she's kind of confronted with having to interact with the immigration services, it's almost like she's in the like world of the game that she's playing on her phone. It was very interesting. Then there was another one called Fair Play, which was very much like kind of, I don't know, it was like, you know, people playing that game, you know, where like you have your hand out and you have a knife and you're like, you know, shoving in between like your fingers and stuff, you know, and they're doing
I've seen Aliens, yeah.
And they're doing, God damn it. And they're doing it for views, right? And then there's like a corporate kind of gathering where like they're all playing musical chairs, and it's kind of clear that like maybe whoever wins at this like corporate kind of like hangout is going to get some sort of like a reward from like the higher ups. And then there's another, you know, like this is all like together, like what is it called when they're happening concurrently, like all these storylines, right? And
we're cross-cutting in between them.
Yes, we're cross-cutting. And I don't know, it was just like,
Nerd.
It was very much like, what are we willing to do in order to win, you know? Like, what's considered fair play? How dehumanizing almost can you get? I don't know. That one was fun. It wasn't like one of my favorites or anything. But this one that was called Tennis Oranges was so fucking good. It was like a stop motion animation, and it was like two bunnies, but it took place in like a miniature version of a street in Chinatown in LA. And I guess the people that made the short used to have a studio in Chinatown. And so then, of course, when they had like, they were there for like years, and then they ended up moving to Burbank or Silver Lake or something to a new studio. And during the pandemic, a couple of the older people that they had known like on that block had ended up like passing away. And like, so they had created this miniature after they had moved out of that studio originally. And then they were like, oh, now we know like kind of what we want to do with it. And there's like a lot of like circles in the short, which I think is kind of like signifying like the circle of life, like a lot of different things. But it was really good. It incorporated like some dancing and stuff, which was really cute. And then the one that just like shattered and broke me. Oh, there was one other. Oh, one that was called Loser. It actually has the girl from the movie Mean Girls. Is it Angry Rice?
Oh yeah, Angry Rice of the Nice Guys fame.
Okay, yeah. So she's in this short film, and it's basically about like a girl in her like mid-20s, like really not knowing what she's doing with her life. Her mom had gotten sick and died, and basically like kind of like it's about gun violence. And then the very last one was called Michaela's Voice, and this one was the one that just like fucked me up, because she's autistic, but she's nonverbal, and so she uses like a letterboard to like communicate. And actually her dad his name is Needles, and he's actually like an award-winning like music producer. And Mick, you look like you're dying.
Mick looks so dead.
I'm very tired. If I
Caffeinate,
apologize.
my boy.
Keep talking.
And so she's nonverbal, but she, I guess, this guy who wrote and produced and directed this short had originally done a documentary about needles, and neither of them were really kind of happy about how it ended up turning out, and so they just kind of like left it to the side. And then he ended up talking to him, I guess, and was like, oh yeah, like my daughter, she's started communicating in the last 6 months. She's been like kind of writing a lot, like with the fingerboards. And that's when he kind of knew that there was a story there, and like pretty much took like all the almost kind of like journaling that she had done and like kind of arranged it into a story. And I thought it was just like the visuals were great, and they really put into words like how different it is, like each of our experiences in this world, and the beauty of being individuals, and like even if we don't understand each other, that there's like an inherent beauty in like being human and experiencing the world, like even if it's not like individually, not necessarily as a collective. I don't know, I really loved it. That shit made me fucking cry. I had to tell one of the organizers, I was like, that was fucked up. That was fucked up how you guys just brought the house lights up after that film, because I was not having a cute time.
Would you say that you were perhaps messy and unfuckable?
Oh my God. I literally had to explain. I told my voice teacher about that. I was like, so we have a rating system on the podcast. And he was like, oh, what is it? And I was like, oh, well, something's really sad. Like the Iron Claw. We call it messy and unfuckable. And he laughed so hard. Oh my God. He loved it.
Hell yeah.
Yes. Attributed to Kevin Smith. He came up with that bit.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Wunderbar.
Kevin Smith.
Well, director of Clerks.
Yes.
And Dogma.
I've seen a few other movies. Number one, Alexis, I feel like definitely get a link to the shorts so that we can put it in the show notes.
Yes, please. I love a good cry. I'd like to partake
put some
in the
people
tears.
on these. I don't want to take up too much more time with what's going on because we have a lot to discuss during our big topic. Real quick, I'll say I saw The Danish Speak No Evil, which was pretty good. I saw one other film that I am going to wait to discuss. And I watched Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer with Alexis. And,
I forgot about that. Oh, actually, I rewatched Bodies with Jacoby while I was in town. But I fell asleep during the last half because I was tired.
Well, there we have. I think that's as good a place as any.
Wait. Please.
Maybe it's not.
It was my first time seeing Rise of the Silver Surfer, and let me tell you, I'm very concerned with how stretchy. Is his name John? Johnny? No.
No, that's Reed.
What the fuck is that other? Reed, yes. If you want to be unsettled, just watch the scene where he dances with a bunch of women at the club. And he's like twirling them out, but his arms get really long, and somehow the women are like not disgusted by this. They're like, oh yeah.
They like what they see.
Oh man.
He shows immense potential.
To be honest, one of my favorite viewing experiences, just because I was hanging out with Zack, Jacoby, and in Roommate, and it was just what a delight, to be honest, to be around all of those goofs.
Yeah, watching a movie that I was obsessed with when I was like 9.
Yes, and nice. I feel like Jacoby and In Roommate are just like very much like, I don't know, superhero comic book people almost a little bit.
They will watch anything with superheroes in it.
Yeah, not me, but we all lead different lives. And with that,
listen,
let's hop out of what's going on.
That was great. I think that was the first time. Alexis, have you done that before? You have done that before.
Only
100
very
episodes?
recently have I actually done like a segue out of what's going on. I usually let you guys
That's very
stop.
rare.
Maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe you should cut it off at a certain point. Well, we are into our fourth big topic of Australian Oceania Cinema Month. But this will not be a big topic directly related to the film. This will be a big topic directly related to the film majors. We're going to do a little episode 100 retrospective and, share some of our thoughts on, how the show has gone, some particulars of it.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this because out of, we've covered so many big topics on this show, and yet we've never really touched on my favorite topic, which is just ourselves. And I think it's about time that we just really revel in the important things, which is just us. And
yeah, lock the fuck in.
by golly, I think we're just so goddamn great,
True.
It's fantastic.
Well,
So we basically thought up some questions for each other, right? That maybe we wanted to throw out to the group and maybe share as a look back on the great successes that we've had over the many years.
great success.
Great success.
All right. Well,
Great success, very big, very girthy.
I think we should start with, we're talking about ourselves. Let's start with our favorite episodes of the show. Where do we think that we personally knocked it out of the park? If at all.
Favorite episodes.
I'm not sure where this is from, but my friend who's been listening to episodes of the podcast was like, oh, I liked your voice. And I was like, well, when was I singing? And they're like, I think it was during Merry Shitmas. And I was like, oh my God, I love Merry Shitmas. And I can't remember what episode that happens on, but I'd love to listen back to that because I feel like it was
Merry
such a...
Shitmas?
Have yourself a merry little
shitmas.
I have no memory of that.
That was during our first Christmas season.
I think
that might have been
Okay.
Kiss Kiss
wow.
Bang Bang.
It may be. I don't remember, but man, we just like improv'd a little bit of that, and that was very fun for me.
Hell yeah. Well,
So this is not our favorite movies that we've covered. This is just our favorite episodes for any particular reason that we've done.
yes, and in that vein, I listened back to a few of our episodes, and there were a few that stood out as winners to me. From early on, I think our episode on the hours was very good. I think we struck a
It's
good
like one
balance
of our only serious
of
episodes.
listen to it again.
Oh, really?
I think we took it somewhat seriously, but there were a lot of good bits on there. I think research-wise, Mad Max Fury Road might be our strongest.
Yeah.
And then pound for pound, us just really, really riffing. The Jack Frost episode was hard to beat.
God, what a terrible time that was.
Pondering what Kelly Preston did for her job because there was no way that Michael Keaton's band was paying for the house. Really solid bit. Alexis unveiling her pork pie hat. Really solid.
Yeah, unreal.
Yeah, a lot of
Unreal.
my own consternation of the people I was spending Thanksgiving with falling asleep and leaving me alone. That is up there in my favorite episodes of our show. So, if this is your, for some reason, first time listening to the show, one, hi, you're late to the party, but we're happy you're here. And two, I'd recommend you go ahead and listen to our Jack Frost episode. Maybe don't watch the movie.
That's fair.
I feel like you actually don't need to watch the movie. We kind of go through it bit by bit. So
yeah, we did really fucking break that thing down. I took a weird amount of notes on that movie.
One of my favorites is gotta be Bram Stoker's Dracula because it was my first time watching it. We got a great toes joke out of it with Mick.
Yeah, that is something that I've noticed because I've been re-uploading our older episodes onto our YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and there's definitely been, thankfully, a drop off in just the unbridled horniness of our show, and
bring it back. And more.
One of the worst offenders is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Listening to that again, so I'm like, horny. God damn, y'all.
That's one of my favorite.
That was a horny
I don't know.
episode.
I had a blast. You know me.
I'm sure you did.
That was fun. Yes, we all know you had a blast.
Mick, what are some of your favorite episodes of ours?
You know what? Some of my favorite episodes of ours, a lot of them are associated just obviously with the quality of movie that it was, but I really liked, we talked about it during our What's Going On. I really liked our Possession episode.
Yep, solid one.
We had a really great guest, Kristen Samito. She was on. She has a horror blog. She's a short film director herself, and I forget whether or not she had seen that before. I think it was a first time watch for her. It was a first time watch for Alexis.
It is nice to talk to another woman on the podcast, to be honest.
I love talking to another woman on the podcast. I completely agree.
You're such a piece of shit.
That's fine, because you know what Jake's reasoning was? His, rationalization for not cleaning as well as he should have before I came to New York. It was, well, I don't know, Alexis, you're pretty genderqueer in that you're one of the boys. And I was like, oh no. Oh no.
That's so funny. I love pulling the gender politics card to explain why I didn't clean the apartment. That's really
Jake Sabbath, our only 2-time guest and one of the best to ever do it.
That's great. You know what? I also really liked our episode just because I enjoyed the at times heated discussion of love and basketball. That I'm very fond of that episode. That was very good.
I'm very fond of that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. We had great conversation because we had differing opinions on certain aspects of it. I look back on that one. That's a really good one. And then also one. I have to say it because it's boat month. But in terms of personal research, I really enjoyed recording Pirates of the Caribbean and Master and Commander because I did as much research as I could, and that was just really fun mansplaining for about an hour about why those movies are so good.
We're happy to give you an outlet for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
If we're gonna list off things that we enjoyed researching, I have to say that Drive My Car was probably my favorite researched movie, for my own.
Yeah.
And you know what else though? Loved Pride and Prejudice because Zack actually really liked the movie, and we all had such a fun time playing that drinking game to it that I feel like we just brought a lot of really fun energy into the episode.
Did we do a drinking game to that?
Yeah, we did. Alexis posted it. It's on the Instagram.
Yeah.
No, but did we all do that together?
Yes.
Yeah. Young,
you just
dumb,
don't remember because you were drunk.
I drank a lot. I have no memory of that whatsoever.
We were smashed. I think we were made Wassail.
I believe it because I can't remember it.
Did we do that with Wassail maybe?
That sounds right.
Oh, probably.
I think so.
Yeah, it would have been around that time.
In terms of stuff that I'm proud I did research for, Balto, because I think that I did research for that to an amusing end.
Togo.
Togo, the real fucking hero.
I would say that Balto is the film major's spotlight, where it really cracks one hell of a controversial story.
You're goddamn right. We shined the light of truth on a pretty fucked up case.
Yeah. When we all sit around the film major's research table and we're going, no, that's not Spotlight. That's not Spotlight. And then Zack came across this goddamn dog named Balto and he knew that's Spotlight. We've gotta.
It's time, Robbie. We gotta nail this scumbag. Well, let's pivot into we've been dancing around it. Our favorite first-time watches for the podcast. Movies that we had not seen going into the episode. Top 5, if you'd like.
Yeah.
Would we like to all go around and say our number 5?
I didn't know we were
sure.
numbering
mine
these.
aren't going to be ranked. Yeah, mine aren't going to be ranked, but that's fine. They don't have to be ranked.
All right, well,
Zach, you got to tell people ahead of time that you're ranking things. You got to have time to rank them.
You know what I found out recently, in Zach, you remind me of this, is that apparently men really like lists.
I love a list.
Like I found that out, that apparently men just love ranked lists. That's something that advertisers do a lot, apparently. It's because they know, like, if they're advertising to men, they'll put things in ranked lists. And it's so funny. Anytime we make a list of something, Zach, you automatically rank them.
Yeah. I like to be organized.
That's so true. I think that of all of us, I start my list last every single year.
It's 100% true.
It is because I just throw that shit on there and then literally like a week before our episode I'll rank them.
Listen, life is chaos. My lists give me structure. Fuck it. Let's throw out our top 5. Who wants to go first?
Death Becomes Her is definitely one of mine.
That's a solid one. Yeah, I could agree with that. That was really good. That's just such a funny film.
It is.
You never get to see Bruce Willis be funny.
He's so good in that movie.
She'll be furious.
For me, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Really enjoyed watching that for the first time. Mick?
The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, that was it still blows my mind that was your first time watch.
And wasn't it all special that we all did that together?
It was.
Oh.
Warmed my heart. That might have been the episode with Mary Shitmas on it. It was somewhere in there.
It was somewhere in there. Somewhere.
Yeah, you know what? I already shouted it out. I'm going to do it for my number 5. And again, I don't know if these are really ranked, but I'll just do number 5 is Love and Basketball. That I just really like that movie. I was really pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah.
I find that most of mine are movies that are ones I don't really just know that much about. Maybe I've heard them in passing, and then I see them and I go, "Oh my God, this is almost a classic." But yeah, Love and Basketball is a great film, very strong, great characters, great characterizations, great narrative, written and directed by a woman. Very cool. Listen to our episode. You don't need to watch the movie, really. Don't support that. But listen to our episode, please. Like, comment, subscribe.
I'll throw out All About Eve. Another one. I just thought that movie was incredible.
Yeah. I still think that would be, if I were to rank, that might be my number 3. All About Eve. I just was so, at first it's so stuffy. It's such a stuffy, dry, he had this transatlantic voice. These guys are black and white. Everyone's very wealthy, isn't it? Yes, very good. Yes, black and white. Yes, and I was like, oh God, am I going to give any shits about this at all? But then you begin to watch it. You watch more and more and more of it, and it's such a great thriller. Really, it's just so suspenseful. It's such a good drama. What's the lead in it? What's her name?
Oh my God, is it Betty Davis? Is that a Betty Davis movie?
Yes. Yeah, it's a Betty Davis movie, or as Alexis calls, Bet Davis, which I still love that. Bet.
Okay. Well, first of all, no one told me.
Well, you don't have
to. It looks like Bet.
I love that.
Because normally E's that are at the end are silent. English is a confusing language, okay? And I wish I could say that it wasn't my first language, and that's why I didn't get that. But, you know, it is, and I still miss that. So, fuck off.
Fair. Totally fair. No, I love All About Eve. And Alexis, you were lukewarm about All About Eve, right?
That was one of the ones I fell asleep in.
Yeah.
I was horizontal, which is always a mistake. I was also horizontal for Fitzcarraldo, which I was also. I wouldn't even say I was lukewarm about that. I feel like I was boiling hot about that one in the wrong direction.
This sounds weirdly sexual when you say this.
Which part?
For these movies, I was horizontal.
Alexis, throw out another one.
Game Night was a delight.
Yeah.
That was a really good first time watch for me. I was, Zach, I'll be honest, a lot of these are actually your picks, I think.
I feel like mine's a fairly even split, because All About Eve was no one. That was Edwin recommended that to me. And then I've got, I think, 2 Alexis ones, 2 Mick ones, because my number 3 is the other Alexis pick, and it's It's a Wonderful Life. I think that movie is fantastic. I cannot believe I had not seen that. Mick, you know you fucking like that movie. Don't roll your damn eyes.
Hella fucking loudly
let me tell you
next
something,
to me
Sonny.
during that movie.
I think my life would be a lot better if I didn't fulfill my dreams. I'll just stay here with my kids and my wife. I think that's much better.
That's a movie about fucking class solidarity. It's not my fault you don't have any. What do you have?
He was
you piece of shit?
Weeping at the end of that movie.
Yeah, I know.
It was the onions. Alexis was making an onion salad.
What else do you have, Mick?
Which is a weird thing to eat.
God. What else do you have, Mr. Mungie?
I want to respectfully abstain after that last comment. I would say another one. See, the problem is, okay, here's the thing. The reason that I don't say things like Game Night or It's a Wonderful Life is because not It's a Wonderful Life, but like things like Game Night, says I had seen those already. But like so a lot of the films that we've covered on this show, I have seen before. So my list is a little harder, but I'm going to go ahead. This is a weird one because I was trembling in fear at the idea of doing Musical March. But I do have to give it to you, Zach, that I really was impressed with Cabaret. That is a stone cold classic. It's so good. It's so well edited. I love a good throuple. Clearly, because I'm here with you bastards. That's just a solid film. It's just so good, and I love how I just love its critique of Nazism and the way it does it, and Lucille Ball is just is lovely.
Well, Lucille Ball might be lovely,
film.
but she's not in that fucking movie.
What am I thinking of?
Liza Minnelli.
Oh, Liza Minnelli. Sorry, Liza Minnelli.
Got your ass.
But she's great. Liza Minnelli's great. Correction Corner. Liza Minnelli's fantastic in that movie.
Alexis, what else you got?
For sure. I saw the TV Glow because it's like definitely, I think, in my top 5 movies of the year currently.
Hell yeah, dog.
It's one of the ones that I think I'll be rewatching later in the year to really determine like how far up my list it will be.
Excellent. Yeah, that's in my top 3 of the year currently. Like with a bullet, it will be hard to get it out of there. For me, it's now the Mick part of the list. The African Queen. I was
great movie.
Completely fucking delighted by that movie. I think that it is kind of like an urtext of like rough and tumble man and prim and proper lady movies, some of which do that better than others, which we might get to in a bit. Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was charmed and delighted and like kind of floored by how much I loved The African Queen. So yeah, hats off to you, Mick.
Hell yeah. I'll go next. Another one that I really enjoyed as a first time watch was Y tu mama tambien.
Yeah,
that was that's a really good film. That is a solid film, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. I think I have it. I think I might be polyamorous. It's another throuple.
it's like you know.
Yeah,
I keep asking you, and you keep saying no.
I know. It's crazy.
It's like, put your money where your mouth is, you piece of shit.
Yeah, I know.
Bad guy.
It's there's something about that dynamic that's fascinating to me. But yeah, that film is great, really solid, and yeah, it takes place during the interesting part of history in Mexico. The ending is fucking heart-wrenching. Great film. Great movie. This Queer Cinema Month, honestly, for both years that we've done it, have been insanely strong.
That, honestly, I'm going to go next because my number one was from Queer Cinema Month last year, and it's Bound.
Yeah. Was that a first-time watch for you?
That was a first-time watch for me, I believe.
Wow.
That is I think the only movie I watched for the first time for the podcast that I came away giving 5 stars. I think that movie is flawless. It is like visually the Matrix light, and has Joey fucking Pants. And any movie with Joey Pants.
We love Joey Pants.
Can only be so bad.
Jennifer Tilly, Gina Gershon.
Oh, it's fucking dark in here. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that my number one might be Dead Alive.
Hell yeah, brother. Good choice.
Because of all the movies you guys have ever convinced me to watch, I think this is one of the only times where I've rewatched it within like the week.
I was so happy when you were texting me about your nephew's reaction to that movie.
That's a level 10 yacht.
Which, remind us, how old is your nephew?
9 years old.
9 years old watching Dead Alive.
Stardom young.
That's a flex.
He said, so when I asked him about
Isolate that audio.
When I asked him about it that evening after we had finished watching, I was like, so what do you think? And then he was like, it was kind of disgusting. And I was like, in a good way or a bad way? And he was like, in a good way. And then the next day, when his mom came to pick him up, I was like, oh yeah, we watched this movie, and I was like, and you liked it, right? And I was like, what did you say you thought about it? And he's like, that it's disgusting. And I was like, but in a good way or a bad way? And he's like, in a bad way, with like a little smile on his face. And I was like, why would you throw me under the bus like that? That's fucked up. But yeah, no, the funniest thing that he said was when the kaiju came out at the end, and he said, that's a level 10 yacht. And I was like, you've taken me out with this.
Oh man, the kids are all right. It's nice to know.
This is a kid who, for funsies, is like, give me a black eye and a zombie bite, you know?
It's nice to know that there are always going to be little horror freaks running around. That's great for like my future aspirations, quite frankly. Mick, what else do you have?
Yeah. I think the last one I have, I think this makes my 5 is, and I think I would put this at number 1, because this is, I think, out of all of the first time watches I've done on this show, this is the only one I've given a 5-star to immediately without question, is this past Queer Cinema Month Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Knew it.
Fuck yeah.
It's just, I think that's my number one. Out of all the movies that I have not seen before,
It's a banger, for sure.
It's a masterpiece. I mean, it's more than a banger. It is a master. It's perfect. I think that is one of those rare perfect films. It's unreal. So please, if you have not seen it, watch it. In fact, I have to give a shout out to my parents, because they, believe it or not, they listen to the show religiously, despite everything I say.
Yeah,
and I love them for that.
Out to my dad
and it's really impressive. Mom and Dad, I love you very much. And they called me or texted me a while ago, and they said, Mick, we watched Lady on Fire. And good movie. Really good movie. Thank you for the recommendation. Your father and I loved it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good.
That's why we do it,
really
folks.
Sweet. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for watching that movie. And everyone else, do as good as my parents.
Yeah, if you're a regular listener of this show and you watch the movies we're talking about, shoot us an email at filmmagerspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Because honestly, this was something that we talked about during the conception of this show, which is, in a way, we wanted this to kind of be like a book club, but for movies, in the sense that we have a movie of the week, we have a book of the week, we tell you what it is in advance.
That's why we tell you what the episode is at the end of the last one.
Exactly. It's so that you can be up to date. You can be a part of the conversation in an extremely one-sided way, which is how we like that on the show, because we enjoy efficiency and we enjoy interaction in a one-sided way. So it's fun that when people actually listen to or actually go out and watch the movies that we're talking about, because I know for a fact, I love listening to movie podcasts. And if I have seen the movie that they're talking about, it's great. So, yeah, I like to think of this as like a movie book club. And so if you're listening to this, please join in on the fun.
And with that, I think I want to condense another thing that, Mick, you pitched. I'd like to just talk. I don't want to talk about our worst first-time watches, because ultimately I started throwing some 2.5s into that list, like movies I just wasn't super hot on, but I don't think are bad movies. Let's talk about just, in general, what do we feel like are the worst movies we've covered?
Okay. So, if I may start, I will say that perhaps one of the best episodes that we've made, to my way of thinking, but was absolutely painful for me. And this is rock bottom. I'm going to start with the worst one. It was the double feature from Greek Hell, Mamma Mia and Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again, which is I will die on this hill that the Mamma Mia movie, the first one, is not better. It's just less bad than the terrible,
that's insanity,
overly long
that's
sequel.
Still insanity.
Terrible movies. I mean, these are...
There's at least 30 movies we've covered worse than those.
That's not... It's just... That was the hardest for me. That was the hardest watch by far. Terrible movies. But I'll tell you what, when I listen back to the episode, it's funny. I enjoy the banter. I enjoy the riffing. So that's the thing. Sometimes when we cover really terrible films, it actually makes for some of the best episodes.
Well, I'll bounce right off of that, because I think maybe pound for pound, possibly my favorite episode of the podcast is also. It wasn't the hardest watch for me, but I think it is the worst movie we've ever covered. Like, kind of unquestionably, and that is Jack Frost. That movie, that movie is hell. That movie, there's just, that's a movie that kicked off Cursed Christmas. Yes,
last year.
I loved
which seemed
Cursed
like a good
Christmas
idea at
personally.
the time.
I had a great time.
Which is insane.
Jean-Paul Sartre.
That is insane.
Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, that hell is other people. He is wrong.
It's me.
Hell is Jack Frost.
Hell is
The film Jack Frost. Alexis, what you got?
Snow Dad is better than No Dad.
I disagree.
He's
Fervently.
right. I mean, tell me that man is wrong. Okay. I think... Fuck, I'm trying to think here, because I feel like there weren't, many movies that I was like, I think in general, I just, am less inclined to say that a movie is terrible, or maybe I just, have a softer rating system.
It bounces off of you more.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Fuck, what is it? Definitely Fitzcarraldo was a hard watch for me because I was really, really tired, and it was a lot of boat on river for a really long time. But I will say...
Which is the best part of the movie. To be clear.
I've come around to Fitzcarraldo
You're telling me
because
you're pitching
you
this.
guys made me watch this movie, and I actually listened back to this episode today at the gym, and it was kind of funny. Honestly, the times that I did have something to say about it, it was pretty funny. I think I talked about holding Werner Herzog at gunpoint. I don't know, just in general, the episode was funny. My experience was not great because I was like, oh my god, this man has taken me to the jungle fucking again.
Riverboat Jungle Trilogy.
So was there no movie that made you angry watching it?
Peggy Sue
Alexis?
Got Married. I thought that I think it was Peggy Sue Got Married. I think of all the episodes that we've ever covered, I probably liked that one the least, and I'm so sorry because I think that you said that your mom really liked that, right, Zach?
I think she liked it. Yeah.
Was it? Didn't she suggest that?
No, that was my idea.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to sneak a Coppola into Back to School Month, and I regretted it a little bit. But that didn't ultimately.
Yeah, that was a slog for sure.
It's slow. There have been there's a section of movies that were kind of slow watches for me. The Hours I had some difficulty with. I found that movie to be kind of a drag, even though I do think that was one of our better episodes. But I wouldn't put that in my bottom of the barrel because, yeah, Alexis, unlike you, there are movies on this podcast that have infuriated me, such as Bullet Train. Bullet Train really got me.
Oh, yeah, Bullet Train was bad.
You guys were so angry about that episode, which makes me feel even more vindicated in choosing Do Revenge and Bullet Train.
Yeah.
I think that was the only instance where I've made you guys both suffer intensely without making myself suffer at all, and it was great.
If you ever are want to make people who might not be inclined to enjoy Do Revenge that much really long for it, show them Bullet Train. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was a tough, just an awful watch for me.
I'm gonna jump on the Alexis train here a little bit because I remember watching it going I don't think this movie's great. Yeah, this is not what I remember it being, but I was getting joy knowing boy, I bet Zack is gonna hate this. Sure enough, man, when we recorded it, I was like, oh wow, you did not like that movie.
Oh my god. Okay, but wait. I had a really hard time getting through the last half of Mamma Mia 2, and that was the moment where I was like, oh, fuck. This is one of those instances where I was so convinced I needed Mick to suffer, and here I am suffering instead.
There's no accounting for taste. Okay,
True.
so this is, I am pretty confident my number 3 I'm pretty sure Mick might share. And that is both of us watched The Polar Express when we were getting COVID.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was purgatory.
And The Polar Express is a movie I've watched entirely too much. Sloan, my lovely girlfriend Sloan Pecchia, who was on that episode, has made me watch The Polar Express more times than I ever would have wanted to in my adult life. And that movie is I've listening back to some early days of the podcast. A term that I was throwing around that I think should definitely re-enter my lexicon is movies that I believe were directed by the devil. And The Polar Express absolutely fucking qualifies, as does Jack Frost.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't say that Only Yesterday was made by the devil, but it was kind of boring. So that's a cardinal sin.
That movie, I'll be honest with you, and I don't say this to be a dick, but I remember nothing about it. Like I'm looking at this list here.
I remember she got hit across the face. I remember they tried some pineapple and they didn't like it.
Oh yeah, I remember the pineapple.
When I was making my list of worst first time watches, I considered putting Only Yesterday on it. The thing that kept it off of it is that movie does look good.
It does, yes.
I also
that's the thing.
There's
not
nothing
like a bad
there.
film.
There's nothing in there. I don't remember it.
I think it's just.
Yeah.
I think the only reason why I wouldn't even say oh my god, I didn't love seeing it was that as a girl, having been a young girl at one time, there were moments where it's oh okay, these are feelings that I understand that I can relate to, but that is not the same for you guys. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of the problem for me is I was on vacation during that, and I think, other stuff going on. It was just hard to ingest. Another one that I struggled with that I should probably give another attempt to. I think this is a movie that I think deserves a reattempt for me, at least, is Wild at Heart, David Lynch. That was a movie that on first watch I really didn't like.
I really liked that.
Yeah, to be honest, me either.
Icky. It was an icky, gross movie that makes me sad and depressed.
Oh, well, okay.
But it does have Nick Cage, it has Laura Dern, it has Willem Dafoe in stockings over his head because he's like a burglar or some shit. I don't even remember. But yeah, that was I didn't care for that. That was hard. That was a hard watch for me, for sure.
I think also we're all going to the World's Fair, which is funny because it's I saw the TV Glow so much.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't love We're All Going to the World's Fair.
It's, some of us are just ahead of our goddamn time, and that's okay.
Okay, well, have we gone through all of them? What are we gonna do that other one?
I have one that I'm gonna save. I've done 4, and my number 2 we're going to be talking about soon. I have some statistics about the show that I can share at some point. It's
men also love statistics.
That is true. I love statistics. I don't know if it's gendered, but these are our most covered directors. So,
hell yeah, brother.
We've done 2 Ty West and 2 Tobe Hooper movies, but both of those were double feature episodes. Then we've done 2 Brian Henson movies, Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island. We've done 2 Richard Linklater movies, School of Rock, and oh my god, I'm blanking on the other one. Dazed and Confused, thank you.
Dazed and Confused.
Yes. 2 Jane Schoenbrun movies. We've already talked about them. 2 John Singleton movies, Boys in the Hood and Too Fast, Too Furious.
Heck yeah, brother.
John Doubleton.
Yeah,
John Doubleton.
In many ways, John Doubleton. We've done 2 Gore Verbinski movies, A Cure for Wellness,
Hell yeah.
and Pirates of the
And
Caribbean.
Pirates.
And then we have done, let's see, we have done 3 Robert Zemeckis movies and 2 episodes.
We've done 3 Coppola movies, or did you say that
So
already?
these are our most covered directors. We have a 3-way tie for the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
We have done 3 Spielberg movies, and one of those was a shared episode. It was the West Side Story one.
Which counts.
Which counts. So he's had 3 movies, 3 episodes. Francis Ford Coppola has had 3 movies, 3 episodes. And as of
What were
today,
the Francis Ford Coppola movies? It was Apocalypse Now and
Peggy Sue Got Married
And Peggy Sue
Bram
Got
Stoker's
Married.
Dracula.
Oh, I just keep forgetting that Peggy Sue Got Married is a Coppola movie. It's such a it's just
Yeah,
so.
no, you're not alone,
It's
Alexis.
it's like the Australia to Baz Luhrmann. I'm like, it just doesn't fit.
And that is the final
Yeah.
guy who we have covered
Well-
3 fucking times. As of today.
You say it like it's a bad thing.
I am
don't know
fucking
why
saying
it's-
it like it's a bad
Elvis.
thing.
Moulin Rouge and Australia.
Yeah. two really good movies, and then also Moulin Rouge. So, like, what's the problem?
Okay. I feel like. Do we have any?
So we're not going to
should
cover
we-
our worst takes.
Well, that's a clear Alexis saying that the song from the beginning of Jack Frost is good. That's like we don't need to delve deeper into that unless
You
Yeah, the
guys,
worst
you
takes
guys
on our
don't
team.
have a rated worst take. You guys have said some incredibly inflammatory shit on this podcast, and you don't have a worst take.
I have mixed
I
worst
wouldn't even
take.
say that's my worst take personally.
I have Mick's worst take, which is when he was talking about Twisters, saying, I just don't buy that an attractive woman could be a scientist.
That's not what I said.
Number one with a
That's not
bullet
what
in
I
it,
said.
but it
I said
sounded
that
a lot-
I didn't say that. I said that I don't think women
No.
are believable when they're smart.
No,
No, Mick,
I
that's
think
not what you
Mick's
said. That's
worst
worse.
take. I think Mick's worst take
something like
was
that.
when he pitched the Muppets taking flight United 93.
That's Mick's best take. That's a best take.
That's a good-
That's an awesome take.
That's a good
hysterical.
take. That's a hilarious take.
At this point,
That's a great take.
enough fucked up stuff has been said on this podcast that I am comfortable publicly saying that's extremely funny and it should be made.
Okay.
Wait, what's Zach's worst
I've got
take?
2.
Never had a bad one.
Okay, I've got 2. I think that the 2 worst takes that I can think of off the top of my head, there's just so many to pick from, but the 2 that really are prevalent for me are, one is the fact that it's not a bad take, it's just being blatantly wrong, is when you gaslit me on purpose saying that there was no schizoid embolism in the beginning of fucking Total Recall when there 100% was one.
Still not sure.
bugs
Jury's
me.
out.
And then the second one
Jury's out on that first one.
We've talked about it. I think we've talked about it 3 times already. But you saying that Mamma Mia Part 2 is better
Easily.
than the first one blows my mind.
Like easily, it's not even close.
I really think that is like the worst take that you've had on a film that just I'm confounded about.
I
don't
feel
get it. I'm completely
like you guys could have found something better than the harmonica theme, because arguably the harmonica shit is pretty cool in the band.
No,
know?
it isn't.
No, it's oh my god,
It's not.
It's so not.
That is the most confounding take. Like, Alexis, you've said other stuff where
Honestly-
I'm like, I don't know about that. That is by far and away
Yeah,
the worst take maybe, and I listened to that episode today, and I said at the time that you were pioneering new ways to have a scorching hot take, because that is madness. That is the take of a deaf and blind person on music. I cannot fathom thinking that is good. That is
okay, but that's such a good
music.
episode, and honestly, that fucking the clip art that I sent you guys is still by and far my favorite edit off of this podcast.
Listen.
Is me in the pork pie hat with my real pork pie hat.
If anything, we need to keep having bad takes because I enjoy hearing them. And with that,
we have a lot of practice.
True.
that, let's get into our 100th episode film.
Like, why are we talking about movies that are hard to watch and infuriating? And
My number two.
What's the relevance here?
My number 2 worst movie that we have ever covered on the podcast, and potentially my hardest watch, is 2008's Baz Luhrmann directed Australia. Here is the description. With the globe on the brink of World War II, Lady Sarah Ashley, Nicole Kidman, travels from Britain to Australia to inspect a cattle ranch she inherited. Reluctantly joining forces with a rugged local known as the Drover, Hugh Jackman, she sets out on a cattle drive across hundreds of miles of harsh terrain to save her ranch. But when they finally reach the town of Darwin, they must contend with the same Japanese bombers that just rained death upon Pearl Harbor. So I'm going to start with my history with Australia, because for some insane reason, this was my idea. This is the first movie that I can remember watching and being like, this movie is a piece of shit. This movie is awful. It has no merit. And I am worse off for having seen it. I watched this rented from the Eugene Public Library, probably since it was at the library and we were able to get it. I'm guessing it was probably a couple of years after it came out, so I was probably like 12. And watching it with my mother and Edwin, an hour in, my mom was like, this movie is so fucking stupid. I am going to bed. It was not late. An hour later, Edwin was like, I cannot do this anymore. This movie is awful. And I, being the, growingly film obsessive child that I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not having a great time, but I'll see where this goes. And for the next 45 minutes, which, as a child, 45 minutes is more of your life than it is now. I watched in horror and anger as the movie continued to just be completely fucking meritless, a idiotic nightmare that I hated. And now, having revisited it, I've seen worse movies. It's pretty awful, in my view. I'd literally rather watch any other Baz Luhrmann movie than this. I could honestly watch Elvis, a movie that I have watched more times than I ever wanted to. I could go for Elvis again over watching like 20 more minutes of Australia. I think that this is like unquestionably Baz's worst movie. But I think to be one of the worst movies I've ever seen, you have to be a movie that feels like it has absolutely no perspective, no imagination, and no soul. And this is a bad Baz movie, which means it's a really bad movie for me. But like, Baz Luhrmann is still a filmmaker with talent, as evidenced by the other movie that I watched today, which was Strictly Ballroom.
Oh, nice.
I watched it right before the podcast, and I have to be honest, I'm angrier at Baz Luhrmann than I have been at any other point we've covered him. Because I have now seen a movie of his that I actually think is pretty fucking solid. And I think since then, he has leaned into every single one of his bad instincts and has become a worse filmmaker throughout his career. He is a man who has boneheaded instincts and who at one point was capable of a level of restraint and humanity that does not exist in any of his other works. Very much so in this one, which I hate. Alexis, what's your relationship to Australia?
Good fucking God, that was the longest fucking intro.
I had a lot of feelings.
Well, thank you for sharing your very big feelings. You know, we'll be sure to discuss that more on the pod.
Thank you.
So I saw this movie in theaters when it came out, and so I think I was, because this came out in 2008, I want to say. So I was also 12. And I had been obsessed with Moulin Rouge growing up. I think at that point I had had seen Romeo and Juliet once, and I think I had seen Strictly Ballroom maybe. Just as a thing, like, I will tell you right off the bat that as far as Baz Luhrmann's movies go ranked, Australia is at the bottom, but I love most of his movies so much that it's like the bottom isn't really the bottom, you know? It's just like, it's more like I'm just lukewarm on it, you know? Where I'm like, oh, there's good things to it. Yeah, there's all these things that don't work at all, but there are things that I do still enjoy about it, you know? It's just that it's not his wheelhouse, you know? Like, what he was doing there is not his wheelhouse. And I think that we can all agree that, you know, he thrives in like a hedonistic dance party type of vibe, you know?
Yes.
And that's what I love about him. I will say that also Strictly Ballroom and Elvis are kind of tied, but I think Strictly Ballroom may be my favorite Baz Luhrmann movie because probably of its simplicity. But I really enjoy the frenetic pacing of all of his movies. And of course, Australia doesn't have that frenetic pacing. I was talking to somebody today about like how the rhythm of the edits is what Baz really excels at, you know, kind of in the way that the guy in like Cabaret, you know, like he plans the choreography with the edits almost, you know. And Baz is not really like that. It's not choreographed exactly, but it is rhythmic.
He definitely likes Fosse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he grew up in, you know, like with a you know, in theater and dance type of stuff, like being, you know, at least adjacent to it. So, poor Mick.
Mick is so out of it.
He suffers. But listeners, just so you know, he was agreeing with me that
Mick is now doing the Wakanda Forever sign. I know that you can't see that, but I don't want him to get away with it. So I'm telling you.
He can't keep getting away
with it. That's how I feel whenever I watch a Baz movie.
You know, yeah, so you know, Zach, I'm like on the total opposite where like I absolutely fucking love Baz Luhrmann. So like Australia, unfortunately, even though I think it's not a great movie, it's still firmly like kind of average for me, where I'm just like, I started watching it and the first like, I would say like 20 minutes of it, I was just like, is this bad? And then as it went on, I was like, nah, I still kind of like this movie. I don't know. There's just something about it, you know? There's the swell of the music, the landscapes. To be honest, I mean, like, I think it's Mandy Walker is the cinematographer on Elvis, and she's also the cinematographer on Australia. I think this is the first time that he worked with her. And I think that, to me, when you follow a certain director for, like, a really long time, that when you learn more about movies and you go back and you're like, oh, okay, this was the first time they worked with this cinematographer. It's kind of like, oh, when you go back and you watch something that came after, then it's like, oh, you can see where they're putting things together and like where their flow has become, you know, like it meshes more. Kind of like in how Strictly Ballroom, it's like you can really appreciate where he went. Maybe Zack can't, but I can appreciate all the little bits and pieces. I can appreciate all the bits and pieces that became what it was that really excited me as a kid growing up, you know? And that's what we're all here for. You know, Baz is one of those directors that genuinely made me excited about movies as a kid through Moulin Rouge. And I think that that's just like an experience that you can't downplay. And, yeah, so that's my relationship to Australia.
I find it so funny that we had like the opposite reaction to Baz Luhrmann at a young age, where like he was like someone who really excited you about film. And for me, I'm like, oh, film can be bad. Mick, what's your experience with Australia, you sleepy, sleepy man?
I have no history with Australia other than it being pretty recent. Back when Alexis, when you still lived here in LA, I remember we had seen Elvis for maybe the fourth or fifth time, and we were just going like, God, like this man can do no wrong, which is something I obviously still stand by. I adore that movie unironically, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought, okay, well, I've seen that. I've seen Great Gatsby, which I used to love, and I don't like quite as much as I used to. I still think it's solid, but I don't think it's as great as I thought it was when it first came out in high school. But I thought, you know what? I really like Moulin Rouge. I really like Elvis. I should watch more of his movies. And so you showed me Strictly Ballroom, which is really good. Then you showed me Romeo and Juliet, which I adored. I really like that movie. I just love his kinetic, the cinema of excess that he relishes in. It's just it's so glitzy and it's just everything about it. The way it's edited, it's just so over the top and exaggerated, and it's delightful.
I think it shows that he kind of started in theater and opera in a lot of these movies.
Yes, and I love that. I just love how that all just comes together in this beautiful amalgamation of glitzy chaos. I think it's great, and it works for me. I enjoy his cinematic language that is very distinctive to him. And so after seeing all of those, I went, you know what? If I watch Australia, it will mean that I have seen every single one of his movies. And Baz Luhrmann, and I think only him and Quentin Tarantino are the only directors that I've actually seen their entire filmography. Because then we watched Australia. And I remember, Zack, you mentioning that this is one of the worst movies you've ever seen.
Yeah, horrible.
And I'm okay, nightmare. So it's going to be terrible. And I was watching Australia, and I'll be honest, this is a safe space, that there may have been some substances involved that maybe would have improved the movie-going experience. And I remember thinking, you know what? It's not that bad. Like, it's not good, but it's not this dog shit movie that I've been told it was. Like, I had fun. I think it was, similarly to his other films, you can't take it completely seriously, which is ironic because this is a movie that at a lot of times
it's trying to be
not
very serious.
Demanding that you. it's not demanding that. I don't think this movie ever demands you to take it seriously, but it does flirt with the idea. It suggests that could you perhaps take this seriously?
Can I please get into that?
Work.
I need to
Sure.
get directly into that because I've been watching a lot of as much interview stuff as is available online, which is kind of limited. For a movie that's this recent, I've been watching as much interview stuff as I can about this movie. There's a lot of stuff that's about Baz Luhrmann like re-editing this into a miniseries for Hulu during the pandemic. And he has talked about
make it even longer.
Jesus Christ, Baz, please. He cannot keep getting away with it. But he's talked about how
he can.
This movie, I mean, he didn't with this movie. This is his only movie that wasn't a financial success in America, and
they keep giving him money
for good fucking reason. So the thing that he's talked about with this movie is he's like, I really wanted to dig into this horrible practice from Australia's history that didn't stop until the 1970s of mixed race children in Australia being taken away from their families and being taken to these like essentially schools where they were forced to be indoctrinated into Christianity and had like years old cultural practices like beaten out of them. And Baz Luhrmann is not the person to tell that story. And I think that became abundantly clear to me when I watched Strictly Ballroom, because for my money, unquestionably his two best movies are Strictly Ballroom and Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge, I go back and forth on if I feel mixed positive or mixed negative on. Strictly Ballroom, I think, is broadly pretty good. And both of those movies are inherently kind of silly. They are dealing with, massive outsized emotions and theater folk, and they're telling broad melodramas that are not rooted in a reality that people have experienced or in historical trauma. And when he starts to flirt with that shit, it is like oil and water. Elvis is kind of a weird mix of both, which is why I feel like Elvis does have like some genuine, like kind of incredible highs. But like, you can't take Baz seriously, and he's dealing with subject matter that is serious, and it's a bad mix. It makes me so frustrated.
Yeah, but wouldn't you? Here's the thing that I find fascinating about that is that you don't approach. You're completely correct. I'm not disagreeing with you. You're correct on all counts. But the thing is, it depends on your mindset going in. Because to me, everything you said is true, which is kind of what makes it so great. It's funny.
The fact that
and
it's
entertaining.
This is the other thing is I do not appreciate Baz's sense of humor broadly. I think he's a lot like Michael Bay in the sense that he is an incredible visual stylist, yet his sense of humor is lady scream into camera, broad racial stereotype. It's...
Yeah, but you love Michael Bay.
But I don't think Michael Bay is
say he's
funny.
One of America's biggest
I
auteurs.
don't think Michael Bay is funny. I think when Michael Bay is trying to be funny, it is his worst shit, and I think Baz leans into it heavier.
I'm glad you mentioned Michael Bay because Australia is 100% his Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Michael Bay attempted a movie that, Zach, you said has historical trauma there. This is an actual thing that happened that is a very serious subject matter. So who should we get to direct it? Michael Bay. And it doesn't completely work. There are things about it that work, and there are things about it that don't. Now, I would say that the things that don't work about Pearl Harbor are just really grinding and boring, which is the melodrama and the romance parts. The actual the action sequences are superb.
It's his wheelhouse.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I think Michael Bay.
I think those parts of Pearl Harbor are superb. It's kind of the opposite here, where in Australia, the melodrama bits are pitch fucking perfect.
I don't agree.
They are so ridiculous. It's great, but the big, dramatic, serious stuff, the big set pieces are not great. It's a genuine attempt on his part, and I tip my cap to him. But yeah, like the second, because this movie's 2 movies. You get 2 movies here. The first movie is this giant cattle drive. The first movie is a Western. The second movie is a World War II epic when the Japanese Air Force begins bombing this far, far north village of Darwin, this coastal Australian city. So basically, yeah, you get this, you get these 2 stories, and I think the first one is ridiculous and it's entertaining in that way. But I have to say, and you know what, I know this is just a personal thing, but I'm a big history fan, and so obviously World War II is a topic is very interesting to me. So when we get to the World War II parts of this movie, I do plug in quite a bit more. I find it interesting.
I think it just also gets more cohesive as the movie goes on, because I feel like the beginning of the movie is very Baz in the way that everybody's a little overdone and like almost caricature-y in some ways, and everything's like exceptionally stylized, including the acting, especially Nicole Kidman. I think this is the first time that I watched this and I actually thought to myself, is Nicole Kidman's acting bad?
I think this is her worst performance.
But the thing is that it's very similar, like the beginning of it with her expressions and the way that she reacts to things. It's very similar to Moulin Rouge, and of course it works so well in Moulin Rouge, but it doesn't feel in place really exactly in this film. And so I really was having a hard time. I was like, oh my God, am I going to have to go on the podcast and be like, I think this may be one of her worst. But I think she, like, as soon as she's out of that kind of stylized, like once, pretty much like for the most part, once she dismisses Fletcher, I think that she is drawn back a little bit more. I think in general, like her character just becomes more real as she, I don't know, I guess adjust to the outback or something. Also, why was that girl running like that next to the truck? It just looked weird.
Like
it's one of the weirdest parts of the movie where she's just like jogging next to the truck and she's like, "Hello, Drover." You know, like I don't. Every time I see that, it's always very jarring. It almost looks like a cartoon.
This movie looks baffling to me. And the thing that baffles me about it is that I know a lot of this movie, like at the time that this was made, this was the most expensive movie ever shot in Australia. And the Australian Tourism Board did a bunch of like advertising in conjunction with it because they thought that it was going to be kind of a Titanic level hit, which I think is the other movie that this is very indebted to. And like so much of this was actually shot in the outback and like on a real cattle ranch. And yet there's something about the way it is shot. And like some shots are definitely CGI backgrounds. I never feel like anyone exists in the space that they are in. And that is part of what I like felt to be such a breath of fresh air with Strictly Ballroom is it's just real locations and Catherine Martin production design. And I'm gonna speak ill of Baz all fucking day, but Catherine Martin is a fantastic production designer. And when, in my opinion, when you get like digital trickery and like over the top Baz flourishes mostly out of the way, it kind of lets her work sing for me. I just liking Strictly
Well,
Ballroom has
so-
really put me in a bad mood about Baz.
I kept telling you how much I liked that movie,
It's
and you
a good
finally
movie.
fucking listened to me.
It's a good
I
movie.
know, it's my favorite. It's literally like one of my, like, I don't know, if I had to put together a top 20 movie list, I think it might make it, to be honest.
It's just like
Also,
I
there's
can
just
see.
like, okay. I think that there are also, what makes the stylized first, like, third of this movie really difficult is that there are some, because I've seen this movie at least a dozen times, probably. I watched it a lot after it came out. We had it on DVD. I threw it on quite a lot. Okay, you need to leave me alone, okay? I was discussing with somebody about how some of my favorite movies have had, like, the most, like, bi-panic energy, like, ever. Like, I can find, like, the two leads very attractive. Like, Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman, oh my god, you know? Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor, you know? Like, say less, right? So there are some very strange cuts of coverage in the first, especially third of this movie. I wonder if it's just because normally Baz has so much coverage of a lot of movement and the cuts are very aggressive, but they're happening so fast that you can't really distinguish whether or not there's lapses in coverage. Whereas in Australia, I think that there are a couple of parts that I caught where I was like, oh, I feel like that was like kind of a lapse in coverage where it's like, oh, clearly she wasn't moving in that last shot. And then all of a sudden she's kind of over here and it feels like almost like a jump. And in some of his other movies, that wouldn't feel that weird, but in this, it feels very weird.
Yeah, and
so that was something I noticed.
That would make sense because I know like this was kind of his most difficult shoot. Like the same shit that happened during Mad Max Fury Road, where they were shooting, happened in the desert in Australia, where they had like a once in 100 year rainfall, and it completely fucked up their production. Like this was an arduous shoot, and I think it shows.
I mean, sure. Also, I really wonder, is it hard to maintain an English accent when you are Australian and everybody else is doing Australian accents around you? I just wonder. I really want to know. Like, how hard was it for her to maintain her, like, English accent when, like, literally everybody else is speaking in that? I do think, though, that there's a lot of shots of landscape that are exceptionally beautiful that I do not think are CGI. And the blocking for this, like, do you guys remember after Fletcher is dismissed and kind of all the people who work on the station kind of come together? She stands by the window. I think Bandy comes in, and then I think the Asian guy, what was his name? I want to say Sing Sing, and that feels like racist,
it was.
but I think that actually...
yeah, don't worry, it was racist. It was Sing Song.
Yes, okay.
It was Sing Song, so, Mr. Sing Song.
So
Go
yes,
to jail.
So Sing Song is also on the screen, and that shot is so well blocked. It is like, it's just one shot where I was like, wow, that's beautiful. That, like, just the layout of it looks incredible together. Like, there's a lot of depth. There were just like moments of that, like, throughout the movie where I was like, oh, okay, you know, like, there's thought going into it. I think in general also, though, that, like, Mandy Walker, the cinematographer, is really talented and she does really incredible work. And I think that, like, obviously you get to see it shine in better productions, but like, you can see pieces of it, like, throughout the movie.
Yeah, I don't agree that this is a bad looking film. I think it looks fine. I think it's very polished. It's very sleek. No, I'm retorting Zack.
Oh,
I'm on your side with this, Alexis. I think it's very polished. I think it's very colorful. It's not like those damn Marvel movies where it's just like they haven't even color graded it in that way. It's staged well, it's blocked well. Yeah, some of the backgrounds sometimes don't work completely, but I mean, shit, some of the backgrounds in Lord of the Rings are shit, and I adore that movie. I'm not going to hold it against that.
Yeah, I think the only thing is that
I don't know.
sometimes things look almost a little
I
unreal.
like the way this looks.
Like almost always, in my view.
Yeah,
But that's a lot of Baz's movies are like that, though, you know? And I think that it's just like, this is one of those times
to be
that...
literal.
Yeah, but it should look good.
Quite work. It wasn't as effective.
It does look good.
It just, like, I feel like I'm watching, like, I don't know, a sitcom.
It's
like,
not poorly shot. You just don't like the aesthetics.
It looks disgustingly sharp around people's edges, and I think it works against the movie. I just,
I think it's a little jarring, but I mean, not enough for me to be like, I hate this movie.
I mean, like, if it was just that, okay.
Go on, Mick, because somebody I would like to hear
here's
from.
Here's what I think is jarring, is you have this huge villain, King Carney, and he's a huge problem because he's a cattle rancher. You know, he's the owner of this huge ranch, and he has all of these cows that he wants to sell to the Australian military because they're marching off to war, and they need to eat a lot of beef. So how are we going to feed our troops? Well, they're going to buy my cattle. They're going to buy my cows. Meanwhile, you have Nicole Kidman's character who has traveled all the way from England to meet her husband who owns a ranch, and he's dead by the time he gets there under some suspicious circumstances. That's never explained. You never find out what happened to him.
No, you do.
And
yeah, you do. Have you seen the movie? You piece of shit.
Zach, don't spoil it. Zach, don't spoil it. It's called intrigue. It's called titillation. It's called teasing. Anyway, so the whole first half of the movie is you have Drover, Hugh Jackman, who's helping Nicole Kidman drive her cattle to the docks at Darwin to get onto the boat before King Carney and his cattle. And you have all of these bits where the King Carney's ranchers try to sabotage and cause stampedes, and it's kind of like Mad Max, but with cows. And if I haven't sold you with that, then I don't know what will. But the movie, halfway through, you have this villain, and then you get this montage of everything is happy. We're advancing through time. Now Drover and Nicole Kidman, well, by golly, they're really happy. They have their adopted son, Creamy. Not a fan of that name, I'll be honest.
His name isn't Creamy. His name is not Creamy. Yeah, it's a slur that they call him.
Yeah, but that's all you hear of him. He himself says, "I'm creamy." I'm like, you got to stop. You're using the language of the oppressors. That word has held us down.
I cannot get into the depiction of this kid because it's.
But here's the thing.
Ugh.
Yeah, we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll get into how fucking racist this movie is.
What's crazy to me is how King Carney, his death, this huge villain. His death is done in a brief flashback amongst a montage.
But was he really the villain?
Very odd.
Yeah, I feel like
he is.
Fletcher,
he's the villain of the first
half.
half.
Fletcher was always the villain.
Yeah, I feel like Fletcher is the.
He's the main villain, but that doesn't matter. You don't get rid of this guy You don't get rid of this guy in a single shot.
But you do.
I agree, that is
because
weird.
You don't.
It's weird. I'm with Mick. It is weird.
You have a moment so that it's cathartic. It's not like, and then this happens, and then we're happy, and then this guy, oh, he's dead, and then we're going over here, and look at it, we got cattle.
I gotta be honest, I didn't really clock that he died.
King Carney isn't really.
But he's important.
Not really. Yeah,
he's
but I feel like it. I don't know if it would fit to like have, because it's not.
This movie is so long, and yet they're like, oh, we don't have enough time for that. We're gonna have to just have that in a single shot.
Time. I just think it doesn't make sense. Like all the people that they kind of spotlight in the movie, they really all of those other side characters that don't live on the station for the most part, they only get snippets. They only ever get snippets of like little conversation and stuff. So it makes sense that they wouldn't actually take a scene to do that, because that's not our main characters technically, you know, like Fletcher is, you know, but like not him. I don't know. I'm not sure that
But he puts the whole plan into fruition.
I would say
this whole
that's
thing
like,
is his
that's
idea.
like
he didn't
saying
ask
that,
Fletcher
like,
to kill.
Okay, but
He didn't ask Fletcher to kill the guy.
Fletcher is still acting in his interest. That's like saying that, like, to tell it to you in Star Wars. It's like saying that we don't need to see the Emperor die because Darth Vader is the main antagonist. Also, I'm just going to say it's really nice to have somebody else do my work on a Baz Luhrmann episode. I feel so alone so often on here, so thank you, Mick.
I am solidly on the fence with this one.
I want to talk a little bit about Baz Luhrmann and racial politics, because I think that this is really the big thing where I'm like, it's kind of unquestionable that Moulin Rouge and Strictly Ballroom are like the subject matter he should be dealing with, because whenever Baz Luhrmann touches on race, it is something that makes me want to bang my head through a fucking wall, because in this movie, he cannot resist a thing that Baz Luhrmann cannot fucking resist, no matter how good his intentions are. And I do think he's a person who is well-intentioned. He cannot resist giving you...
They cast the black man as Drover, Zack. Why are you upset?
He cannot resist making a movie about a white boy who's like... basically down with the oppressed group, and he's almost one of them. And it blew my mind that 7 minutes into this movie, Hugh Jackman walks into a bar and he's like trying to get his like Aboriginal friend in there, and the bar owner says, "Get out of here. As far as this town is concerned, you are black." And then Hugh Jackman proceeds to spend the entire movie explaining Aboriginal culture to Nicole Kidman when there are Aboriginal people present, and the Aboriginal characters in this movie exist for like 2 reasons. And this is a movie that Baz Luhrmann, keep in mind, conceptualized as, oh, I'm going to do like a Gone with the Wind style epic told through the eyes of an Aboriginal child. Aboriginal characters exist either, as Nulla does, to bring 2 white people closer together and be a prop in their story, or to die to advance the story of 2 white people, which happens both with Nulla's mother and the drover's friend. Like, you only have 2 options if you're not a white person in Australia, and it is like... It is something that you see in Elvis as well, where it's like his whole thing where it's like, oh, you know, they're gonna lock me up because of the way I'm dancing, and you know, he's like, oh, you know, no, you're a famous white boy, and then he does get locked up, and it's like, well, you know, we're gonna skate over the controversial parts of Elvis's relationship to the black community and say he was just kind of a down ass white boy with a little bit of soul. Like, stay away from it, Baz. Stay the fuck away. I'm heated on this episode because I've seen him make a movie I like, and it makes me crazy that he continually leans into his worst instincts now. And also, Mick, you said you've seen all of Baz's movies. I'm 1 away. I am 1 away from seeing every Baz Luhrmann movie, and it makes me nuts.
You're putting in the good work. Nothing to be ashamed of.
What have you not seen?
Romeo and Juliet. Brother. I've only liked 1 movie he's made, and I watched it today.
I don't know. You know, you don't like Shakespeare adaptations. So
I'm not against a Shakespeare adaptation. I like both versions of West Side Story.
Yeah, but you specifically have said that you don't like it when they like modernize it.
I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm not totally against it.
I personally think that it's maybe one of the best Shakespeare adaptations. I think it's one of the more interesting ones.
Like,
it's
at this
definitely
point,
one of the best stylized ones.
At this point, I'm pretty fucking deep in the Baz hole, so like I might as well.
I feel like for me, it's got to be like Strictly Ballroom, Elvis, Romeo and Juliet, and then fucking shit, Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, Great Gatsby, and then Australia.
Wow. Moulin Rouge below Elvis is just so crazy to me. Because, like, I feel like that's a movie where I don't love the style of it, but I cannot deny that that movie is, like, flawlessly executed exactly how Baz wanted to make it.
I think that it's great. I think that I just watched it a shit ton as a kid, and it doesn't have the same effect on me as it used to. And I have a more emotional effect with Elvis, so Elvis is on top of Moulin Rouge now. So, unfortunate, but it is true. Anyways, I digress. But, fuck, now you made me forget what I was gonna fucking say.
Zack was talking about representation of colored people in his films.
Did you say colored people?
Yeah.
He's a little sleepy.
Well, should we just stop the podcast now?
It's episode 100. It's a good place to wrap it up.
And done.
He's done.
We're just finished with the podcast now. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not here to defend Baz in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I generally think that he's, it's poor representation. I mean, here's the thing, though. It's kind of how I felt. I said something earlier where it's like, is it really, does he need to take it upon himself to do these type of stories? Does he need to go out of his way to try to, like, do these more serious kind of things when it's not really his wheelhouse? But, I mean, Baz is a pretty popular director, so I think that in having an interest in his country's history, that he brought attention to something that a lot of us not from Australia would know. So, I mean, I think that maybe he wasn't the right person to do it, but I do think that it was good that he did. Like, I mean, his heart was probably in the right place, I think.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, that's the ultimately redeeming thing for me, is knowing that, like, okay, I see what you're trying to do,
and I wouldn't recommend it.
And it's not working. Yeah, it's like, and I wouldn't recommend. And it's, the thing is like, I find it funny. Like, the whole thing about how he has white characters that are basically black. Like, if you really think about it, like, he's down with the cause. He basically endures the same plight as them in kind of a way. They're basically black, is like so fucking ridiculous that it's laughable. And so you kind of have to laugh at it. And it's easy, and of course you can. I mean, of course you're within your well right to be upset about it, but I find that aspect to be so ridiculous that in a way it adds to the allure of it, because it's just so ridiculous.
I guess,
it's so
but
funny.
I mean, don't you guys remember like that in like the, like, I don't know, 60s and prior, that like anytime people hung out with black people, that like they were by association considered to be less than white, like if like say for instance the kids that were in Snap, like if they were caught after hours with like a black kid because they were a part of Snap, it's like they're gonna be killed too. It doesn't matter if they're white, because they're automatically now affiliated with the black cause, you know? I think it's personally, he's just pointing out how much white people fucking suck.
But I think that's a real...
You're right.
No fucking community.
Right.
That is
like, y'all fucking white people ain't got no goddamn fucking community.
I think that's real. I think that's a real thing, but I think you cannot deny that Baz Luhrmann movies use people of color as props for white stories. Like, Nulla is not a character. Like, just because the issue is not that, like, he is pointing out, oh, you know, white people who associated themselves with the liberation of minority communities faced like a social stigma because of that. That's not the problem. The problem is Baz Luhrmann presents as like, well, you know, these white guys, they actually knew about the cause as much as, if not more, than the people in those communities. The drover, he's going to tell you about Aboriginal culture. He's going to explain it to you. He's going to lay it down, even though there are people who are of that community right fucking there. Like, Baz Luhrmann makes movies about white guys who are speaking for those groups, and like it sucks. I hate it.
Well, I mean,
hey man, you gotta admit it's not boring.
Well, I mean, like, I'd rather see Baz write a white person talking about black people than see him write a black person.
Yeah.
Bring on another
I don't
writer.
think that.
Are there no other writers?
Well, okay, sure.
I'd rather not see him touch it at all.
I want his brain.
I actually find the scene where Nala gets to go to the movies. I actually find that very moving. I don't know. I literally like started like tearing up when he went to the picture show for the first time. Like, I think just like the theme of like not belonging anywhere, and you know, and then Bandy coming up to him and saying like, oh, he's got every right to be there, and like putting the coal like kind of on his face. I don't know. I think I just kind of, I mean, like, empathize with like being a kid not knowing like where you fit in, but also like what would it have been like to see a movie like The Wizard of Oz for the first time and seeing, I don't know, like that connection. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure exactly what I'm trying to say, but I did have a thought at the very end of the movie, which was that even though the movie is very much white savior trope and everything, I do think that the end of the movie has a good take, or I guess I think that what he did was right, because even though she had, so as a white woman, even though she had the best intentions and loved Nala and was willing to give him a home and to love him as if he was her own, I think that what Baz was maybe trying to say is that we need to give like the people of a land the space to reclaim it, to reclaim their culture and to be one with their land, you know. And I think that her, you know, finally understanding that he does need to go walk about is kind of that, like, because even though she's like, oh, he shouldn't go to the mission, she still believes that he should be with her, and then that's what's best. But at the end of the movie, she lets him go to be with his grandfather so that he can have his story, his adventure, his reclamation of his identity. He is a character that has been so othered by everybody around him, and he feels that he has no place. And even though he has a place with her, she recognizes that the place that he does belong, that she needs to let him go to, is with his, like, his own people, you know, his culture, you know. That's where he needs to go home, you know. And maybe he could come back to her, but that's where he needs to go, you know, before he can, like, make those decisions, like, to come back to her possibly or not, you know. And I think that is a good ending to the movie, you know. Like, sure, like, everything else is, like, pretty white saviory, but I was like, you know what, I stand by that. So,
You
Alexis,
know, I agree. I think it's a good ending too.
That's an entirely salient point, and is one of the things that had me bump this movie up from a 0.5 star to 1 star. I do think, also, I have watched so much anonymous dog shit in my life that I need to grow and realize that the floor is a lot lower than Australia. Maybe not a lot, but it's a little.
It really is.
It's a little bit lower.
It
A little bit lower.
That's Zach. That is your frontal lobe finally finishing its development,
God.
is realizing that Australia is actually not as
what a
bad as you
beautiful
thought it
moment.
was.
Like, I feel
get
like
this on
like
air.
you're taking this as a win, and you shouldn't, because this movie sucks
Of course we
dog
are.
dick.
Because not only did we get you to watch Australia, but because you watched Australia, you also watched Strictly Ballroom.
This has been like
And by
a years
default,
long.
Now that no. Now, by default, now that you only have one more movie, I know you're going to watch it because you hate to leave things unfinished.
This
because
has
if
been,
there's going to be a list, you have to complete it.
This has been a years-long prank to make me watch so many movies I despise. And, like, I do have to acknowledge and doff my cap to both of you, because that is an incredibly funny
played
bit.
the long game.
That is an incredibly good bit, and I do have to salute you both. Let's get a 21-gun salute to both of these film majors for pranking the goddamn shit out of me and making me suffer Hellraiser style.
Also, I clowned myself. A dog does die in this movie.
Yes.
And that made me very sad. Jeddah. So, like, when Nulla's trying to go walkabout, and the coppers, like, pick him up and then they take him to Mission Island, the dog goes and chases after one of the coppers and the copper shoots the dog. And that's why Nala stops.
Oh,
Dog get shot. We are... What, 3 for 4 on dog death movies in Oceania Cinema Month?
Yeah.
And the one movie where a dog doesn't die, nobody really liked it. Which just goes to show that when a dog dies in a movie, it's always a good movie. I briefly just want to bring up one, like, Baz stylistic thing that I have noticed in all of his movies. And I know it's a choice, but I don't know why it's a choice. And fundamentally, it makes me insane. So when you're filming slow motion, you need to shoot it at, I believe, a higher frame rate so that when you slow it down, it plays smoothly. And throughout all of his later movies, Baz will switch back and forth, oftentimes seemingly at random, between normal slow motion that's shot at like 48 or 64 frames per second and slow motion that's shot at a normal frame rate for footage that you would shoot to playback at normal speed. And it plays super fucking choppy. And, like, sometimes it will be, like, in a heated, like, emotional moment where things are supposed to be, like, kind of intense and frenetic. But sometimes there will just be, like, one shot of, like, and it'll be, like, less than a second of, like, Nicole Kidman walking out a door that's shot at a super choppy, slow-mo frame rate. And I don't know why he does it. And I wish he would stop.
Because it looks
doesn't
cool.
look cool. It looks bad.
To be honest, didn't even notice that, so it must not have looked that bad.
I've spent a lot of time with a guy I don't like. I've started noticing weird stuff.
Hey, I've spent a lot of time with the guy I do like, and I even picked apart the fact that I think that the coverage is weird in the first third of this movie. Can I just say that the guy who plays King Carney, one of my favorite Australian, like, that guy.
He's great.
That guy.
He's phenomenal. He's in Along Came Polly. Do you guys remember him in Along Came Polly?
Never seen it.
The movie sounds familiar, the title.
It's with Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston. And Ben Stiller is an analyst who
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, he's an analyst, and he's pretty much like always like for an insurance company, like kind of trying to determine like how unsafe you are to get like insurance or something. And so like one of his clients that he's been trying to pick up is this like Australian guy who's like crazy. And of course, like the guy is like always doing like these insane things, and that's the King Carney guy. But he's also in the movie Cocktail, which is one of my favorite like family movies growing up. He plays with Tom Cruise. He's like his like bartender mentor or something.
And he's also in last year's Anyone But You.
Oh, yes, he is. He's also in that. To be honest, there are some moments that I just felt like they were really effective. And that's kind of why, like, I feel like this movie is solidly still, like, an average movie for me. And that is, like, the part where they say, like, right after Flynn dies, and they're kind of standing there, and Nala starts to play the Somewhere Over the Rainbow on the harmonica, and then she says, "We can't let them win." And he says, "We won't." And that was, like, a moment where I was like, and I believe this is a Western epic right here, right now. Right here. Right now.
Yeah, it does have parallels with Jack Frost that you can summon a parent by blowing into a magical harmonica.
You know,
they also look pretty cool during the cattle loading scene.
You think Mick is asleep.
I thought it was cool.
You think Mick is asleep. You think he's down for the count, and then he
just
comes
fucking
back
gassed
in.
me hella hard.
I didn't expect this level of help from Mr. Munyai on a Baz episode, and like, I can't wait to have you back in town, buddy. It feels great.
Oh yeah.
He's just not in the mood because he's tired.
Well, no, but here's the thing, though, is I feel very similar to Alexis. Like, this is a movie that's average for me. It's mid. Like, I don't hate it. I don't even strongly dislike it. I totally recognize that there's some bad aspects to it, but there's a lot of stuff in it that I really like. But anyways, Alexis, you were mentioning some things.
No. I mean, I just think they look really cool during the cattle loading scene. Like, those are like, there's certain moments of the movie where I'm just like, oh yeah, like this part right here feels like a really strong like Western epic.
Yeah,
you know?
No, totally.
I mean there's definitely like some of the cattle like kind of CGI stuff is like kind of takes me out of it because I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on right now. Fucking Flynn, like fucking, I don't know, like riding a fucking bull out here, like I know he's about to die, but every time he does it, he goes, "Whoa, no!" Like,
also, like, can we talk about how, in addition, sorry, the one thing, and this reminded me, the one other thing that Aboriginal people can be, in addition to being plot devices, props for white people's plots, and dead props for white people's plots, is they can be magical. They are legitimately magical in this film.
Well,
and it's crazy.
That's an element of Baz Luhrmann that it's in a lot of his movies. Is this kind of this magic to it? It's just the problem is that in this, what he's applying the magic to
non-white people,
that is non-white people.
He's being a real Stephen King about it.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
I think it's just hard because like Baz's stories normally exist outside of the realm, slightly outside of the realm of reality, or just like really on the borderline of it, and then he applied it to a movie that is mainly about black people. So, you know, it's a choice.
I find it interesting that after Nicole, what is Nicole Kidman's character's name? I keep calling her Nicole
Lady
Kidman.
Ashley. Sarah Ashley.
When Lady Ashley, when they're talking, they have to drive these cattle across this desolate part of Australia that like no one survived. And
good recall.
Yes, thank you, Alexis. And that was total recall. And a woman helps get all of these cattle to Darwin to load onto the boat. And before the guy that was the narcoleptic Argentinian who plays the bartender would never allow her in because this is for men only.
That's who he is. Oh my God.
And so after she has done this feat that has never been done before, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that's never been done before. The men allow her to drink in the bar because they go, well, I guess she can drink with us. People who have also never achieved what she has done, therefore she is now. It was, to me, it was an example of one of those things where it's like women have to do so much more than men in order for us to accept them as our equal.
And also white women.
And that was a perfect example.
And also white women get accepted before any person of color. Because you get that moment with... the...
Muggery.
Yes. At like...
Hugh Jackman's brother-in-law.
Yes, after the raid. I'll say it was nice to see Bruce Spence, who played the gyro captain in Mad Max: The Road Warrior. He shows up at the gala. Shouts out to Mick for pointing that one out.
The Mouth of Sauron,
genre legend, also the train man in The Matrix Revolutions. Yeah. God, I don't know. I'm happy we talked about this movie, but I hate it.
Can you guys should be honest with me. You always are. You both have said, it's funny. I think this is one of those times where I think the three of us, we change sides a lot on different things regarding a specific film.
Yeah.
You both have said that Nicole Kidman's acting is arguably
worst of her career
in this movie.
I've always found it delightful.
Especially in the beginning.
But this time I think I was having a hard time because I was really trying to watch it like, is it bad? Is it not? Normally I think it's hilarious, the whole fucking kangaroo bit and the, you want to have it on with me.
On a rewatch, I honestly find her, and it is overacting, I find her overacting to be so in sync with what everything else we're being shown that in a lot of ways, I feel like she's one of the only actors that fully understands what this movie is.
For me,
I think it's also
and that's why it works so much for me.
I think
she is the shift of the movie that takes it from surreal to reality. Because as her character changes, I think that the movie itself becomes more real in a way. Like with its, like how it's taking itself almost.
For me, I think Nicole Kidman suffers kind of the most from this being maybe the most like tonally inconsistent Baz movie. And like, because I think that like she is giving a similar performance to what she gives in Moulin Rouge, but I think Moulin Rouge is like I fully buy that world. I might not particularly enjoy it at a lot of different times, but that movie fully understands what it is. And this movie I think is a mess. And Nicole Kidman commits really hard to it and looks bad as a result.
I wouldn't say that she looks bad. I mean, like it's a fish out of water situation, right?
I just feel like she feels out of water in the movie. Like, I don't think she reads well on screen. I don't think she reads as like a person.
But that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, but none of the people do.
That's what I feel like the point is that her character almost doesn't feel real, and a lot of the beginning of the movie has this, like, almost surreal quality to it. Like, you know, like the girl running alongside the fucking, like, car, you know? It's like the kangaroo's jumping and then shooting it, and then you have this, like, intense close-up where she's shrieking.
It's like a live action cartoon.
Well, I guess
really is.
that's
I don't say that as a
my
dig. I say that as an aesthetic choice.
That's maybe my thing is I don't think Mick, you said it's two movies. I don't think the two movies mesh fucking at all. And I think the first movie is obnoxious.
Yeah.
And I think the second movie then suffers because the first movie is about cartoon people. When you ask me to take them seriously, I can't because they don't exist in any sort of like emotional truth.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
could see
long.
that. Yeah.
I also wonder,
It is very long.
the whole
Could be longer though.
like I feel like the shifts in the movie where things become more and more real is when she actually interacts with like Nulla and becomes like emotionally attached to him as a character and as a person, and in humanizing the people on the station, because when she gets there, her whole thing is like, my husband is here, he's been fucking all of these Aboriginal women, and like she is taking it almost, I don't know, you know, she has, I don't know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking, maybe I don't know what exactly I was about to say, but I just feel like maybe that was purposeful almost in a way, that like the more connected she becomes to the people around her in this land, and then therefore to the land that she's now living on, that she becomes more real, the movie becomes more real in a way that it isn't at the beginning. That at the very beginning it feels like this almost like a unreal adventure that she just landed in, which kind of makes sense because you see like almost like you see an actual cartoon drawing animation of like this plane ride situation. You don't see anything like that at any point later in the movie. So I don't know, like sometimes I wonder like how much of that is purposeful, you know, from Baz. I mean, he's a kooky kind of man, so
Yeah,
that's an interesting read. She falls further to earth, further into reality, and therefore a lot of the window dressing and the magical parts of it just kind of dissolve away.
I don't think the magical parts of this movie remotely dissolve away. You get the kid doing magical singing to bring white people to him multiple times throughout the end of this film.
Does that never happen?
Never
to you,
once
Zach?
in my life.
I
But
respond all the
if
time.
it does, I'll eat. Listen, if that's a real thing, Baz, I'm so sorry.
well, you know, I think it's actually happened to
You're
me.
gonna be eating your words.
It's happened to me once before, so you know, maybe you just have to be brown.
Maybe no, you have to be white to be sung to by a brown person, according to the laws of this movie.
Okay, can we just mention this isn't any complex conversation, but I just have to shout out.
Yeah, can we get uncomplex
my
now?
favorite memory of this movie.
Yes.
My favorite moment from this film is when Hugh Jackman drove her is bathing in the beginning.
Oh my God, yes!
Takes the bucket of water and he cascades it down his perfectly sculpted body. He is so attractive; it's unreal.
Yeah,
but
this is like
it's so
peak
funny
Hugh
that
Jackman.
Every time I see interviews with Baz Luhrmann, and I don't mean a profile, but he strikes me as someone who could be gay.
I have something on this.
And you watch his movies, and you think, God, this feels like a really cool queer director. And I don't know I don't know if I want to get into
Baz Luhrmann on this very subject. There is a whole gay sensibility to the work I do, he says today. You can see it in the films, in the evolution of the work, and that is something that should be there for both CM and me. As I said before, I see all sexual possibilities. We are married and we are a real couple, but we have never denied ourselves any of the possibilities in life. So she's bisexual too? Well, I won't speak for her, but I think if you delve into her history, let me put it this way. She has seen all the possibilities in life too. So...
Oh, okay. So he's actually
Baz
said it out
Luhrmann,
loud.
He was a little
First of
opaque
all,
in his
he
phrasing.
does not sound like that.
He sounds exactly like that. That was a flawless impression.
Nope.
He is an Irish man.
Nope.
That's great. Good for Baz. That's great. That makes me happy because I've always wondered. I was like, how is he not gay? Like, it's so fun and it's so glamorous, and he's so good at glam, and I'm amazed that a conventionally
man,
heterosexual person would be capable of that. And
that Baz, like all good theater, whatever goes goes. You know.
Listen, as Robert Downey Jr.
Amen.
said in Tropic Thunder, everybody's gay sometimes, man. It's Hollywood.
That's right. Amen to that.
Well, Alexis,
Okay,
please.
guys.
This might be a good way
Any of your final
We can
thoughts?
hang our hat
We've
on
been
that.
at this for almost 2.5 hours.
Okay, I will say one of my favorite parts of the movie is when she fucking schools the fuck out of the women that are at this, like, mission ball or whatever, and she's just like, well, you know, I guess we can't ask their mothers, you know, well, why don't you ask your mothers? And they're like, that is so inappropriate. And she's like, or I guess we could ask their fathers. After all, they're all in the room here with us. And I'm like, brr, 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 brr. Is that the noise you normally do, Zach?
It
Do
sure
do
is.
for us.
You crushed it. You fucking nailed that.
Great. Thank you so much. I've been waiting my whole life to successfully. Yes.
How did it feel?
And then, incredible. I did spit a bit, so, you know, maybe I'll try to tone that down next
Comes
time.
with the territory.
Maybe you do as well, though. Maybe we're just wet boys. The music when the drover shows up in that scene, though, is very funny to me. I don't know. It sounds great, but it's also, like, very melodramatic because she's, like, saying, like, oh, yes, tell your lawyers to draw up the contract, and then everybody stopped talking, and there's the drover, who does not have a name. His name is just the drover. At the very least, all of the black people in the movie have a name. The drover does not.
You're right. This movie puts in the hard work. It's a protest film, really, and it's a good pairing with Murder. That Martin Luther King.
He always spoke the truth.
He always spoke the truth.
Sweet Jesus.
It all comes back to Elvis.
I mean, this one especially.
Indeed.
Alexis, unless you have anything else, I'll rattle off some final thoughts.
No.
So I would say that I remain pretty unmoved in my sentiment towards Australia. That it can be good if you allow it to be. Go in with low expectations and perhaps a zesty, potent drink to accompany you. Maybe watch it with friends. That's another thing that could be fun. I have a weird soft spot for this movie. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's over the top. It is very long. You have to just not care as much about quality to enjoy this movie. But I'll do some little shouts out. I really like David Wenham. He plays Neil Fletcher. He's a great Australian character actor.
Faramir.
I think he's really good as Fletcher in this. I think he brings some potent, grounded performance to this that I quite like. I think Ben Mendelsohn. I don't think anyone else could have played that character. Ben Mendelsohn was perfect casting. He was fantastic as Captain Dutton. This is, of course, sarcasm because that character could have been played by anybody, and it's weird that they got Ben Mendelsohn to do it. And lastly, I will, I'll just say that I love Nicole Kidman. I love Hugh Jackman. I love that they're together in this, and I think they make an absolutely gorgeous couple. Watch Australia if you have the time.
I will say my final thoughts on this movie, in addition to it being weird that Ben Mendelsohn is in this movie, it is also weird that Essie Davis, who plays the lead in The Babadook, which I think is a fantastic fucking movie, is just kind of in this as Fletcher's wife, who has very little to do. Yeah, that's Essie Davis. And wow. I think that despite me vehemently disliking this movie, I don't think there's any better way that we could have wrapped up 100 episodes of the Film Majors podcast than shouting at one another about Baz Luhrmann as we all have a few drinks and have a raucous good time. This is
amen, brother.
You know, it's just a delight. I always have a fun time doing it. And again, hats off to the both of you for bamboozling me into watching so many fucking Baz Luhrmann movies. God damn you.
I can take no credit because you literally pitched this yourself. You're like, what would be funny is we did Australia because it's going to be Australian Cinema Month.
The longest running bit that I don't appreciate is definitely the dogs dying, and I bamboozled myself into watching one this time. So,
in a way,
I'm not having a great time there.
We've all been bamboozled.
I mentioned earlier, right off the bat in this episode, that I'm working with an Australian woman right now at my job. And I told her about this podcast that I'm recording, and I'm going, it's our 100th episode. She goes, oh my God, that's amazing. What are you talking about? I'm like, we're covering International Cinema Month, and it's Australia. It's your country that we're doing. And she went, oh my God, what are you doing for the 100th episode? And I go, obviously we're covering Baz Luhrmann's Australia. And she just got dead in the face and went, that's literally our worst one. And I go, well, we're going to cover
that. Plays directly into a note that I took that more or less was, this is a movie made by Australians. Why do I feel like this is offensive to any person from Australia? This is a movie of Australian caricatures.
Wholeheartedly.
How did if Americans made this, I would get it. The fact that it's an all Aussie production is mind-boggling. But now
it adds to the aura.
We are at our last film of Oceania Cinema Month. And I think that we're going to go a little modern, and we're doing Hunt for the Wilder People, which is a 2016 New Zealand film directed by Taika Waititi. It stars
you gonna be okay, Mick?
Sam Neill and Julian Dennison.
Are you the one who hates Taika Waititi?
Huh? What'd you say, Alexis?
Are you the one who doesn't like Taika Waititi?
I'm just kind of, I'm over him right now. I do like Hunt for the Wilder People. This just isn't the movie that I wanted to cover.
I've never seen it.
We don't always get what we want. And Alexis, I think you'll like this movie.
Alexis, you're going to like it.
I think I am too. This was actually going to be maybe one of my suggestions, but this is perfect that you chose this. So
yes.
It's cute. It's a cute movie.
You can find it
It's got a little boy.
You can find it on Netflix. You can find it on...
Isolate that audio.
You can find it on Netflix. You can find it on Pluto TV. You can rent it wherever you rent your movies. And if you want to find us, the Film Majors, you can find us where you've always found us on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Film Majors Pod. And you can shoot us a fucking email and let us know if you've been watching these damn movies at filmmajorspod@gmail.com. We're approaching the length of Australia. We've got to get out of here. We'll see you on episode 101.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Alexis, you've raised your hand. God damn you.
I have raised my hand. Petition to bring back the Tiny Tim of this podcast. I don't really want to be sick, but for some reason that was a very funny bit that we had going for a long time.
I mean, there's falls coming up.
Trust me, we're coming into it.
It is true.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to get sick very quickly.
There
Alexis,
may be
don't you
I
worry.
know that we've got to have some sort of witchy people on this pod, like listening to this pod, you know, like send out some bad juju my way. Like I don't want it, but I'll take it just for the lulz, you know?
Make Alexis ill.
That's right, listeners. Go ahead and send us emails and send us your curses.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here.
Bye.